She has her phone open to the same unsent message from 3 hours ago, thumb hovering, and she types, "Sounds good," instead of what she actually thinks. It goes out. Her shoulders drop like something has been avoided rather than solved. This is happening tonight, and it's happening again tomorrow, because tonight and tomorrow sit inside a real window that closes on August 21. Between now and then, 4 signs are being asked to stop shrinking to keep the peace: Libra, Aries, Cancer, and Capricorn. You might notice that the relief you felt after sending that easy answer lasted about 10 seconds, and then something heavier settled in its place. Here's what this episode delivers before you reach the first minute. The mechanism underneath that reflex to soften, the house in your chart where it's costing you the most right now, and the single sentence you can say, unsoftened, before August 21, that starts to close the gap between the you people see and the you that actually exists. The 4 signs this matters to most are Libra, Aries, Cancer, and Capricorn, and we'll go deep into each of them in a moment. But first, here is the mechanism, plainly. Venus reaches 13 degrees, 26 Libra, on August 20, at 16:28 in the afternoon, UTC, in exact contact with the fixed star Algorab. That contact is only exact for a short stretch. The window opens August 19 and closes August 21, 2 full days. The calculated position is precise to the minute, and it sits in Libra, the sign of the scales, the sign built around the very question this transit disturbs: who gets to be comfortable, and at what price? Astrologers have long read Venus here as the part of us that keeps a relationship pleasant, sometimes at the cost of keeping it honest. Algorab, in traditional star lore, has a harder edge to it, a star tied to friction, to things finally said instead of managed. Put those together and you get a very specific 2-day pressure. The parts of you built to please are being asked to say one true thing instead. What this placement tends to describe is not a transit that breaks anything. It's a transit that stops letting you avoid what was already breaking quietly, on its own, in the dark. This matters most for 4 signs, and it matters differently for each. Libra feels it first, in the mirror, in the body, in the way she introduces herself to a room. Aries feels it in partnerships and commitments, in the contracts she keeps renewing without renegotiating. Cancer feels it at home, in the small decisions that shape who does what and who stays quiet. And Capricorn feels it at work, in a meeting where staying quiet has always been the safer move. The method behind this is simple and worth saying once. These houses come from reading each sign as its own rising point and counting forward from there. A solar whole sign reading, not a claim about any single person's actual birth chart. The symbolism here points toward areas of life where Venus, moving through Libra and touching Algorab, asks you to stop performing harmony and start representing honesty. What follows isn't 12 identical readings. And here's the question that opens the next layer. What happens when the person you've been protecting from your honesty finally hears the unsoftened version of you, and instead of pulling away, they lean in? You've felt it in your own house first: identity, presence, the body, the way you show up before you say a word. Notice the symptom before you explain it. You might notice that when someone asks what you want, your first instinct is to guess what they want to hear, and then you offer that instead. Symbolically, Venus, placed exactly where your identity lives, is being asked to stop performing likability and start representing something true. It is the sign of the scales, and this transit is not about balance for its own sake. It's about which side of the scale you've been quietly starving. The gesture inside the window is small and specific. Today, choose one sentence you'd normally soften and say it at full weight without the cushion at the end. Not a confrontation, just the sentence. You may find that the person you were protecting from your honesty was actually waiting for it, and the version of you they meet when you stop performing is easier for both of you to be around. If you let this pass, nothing dramatic happens. That's the trap. You could find that people start describing you in ways that don't match who you feel like inside, and the gap between those 2 versions will have widened so gradually you won't remember when it started. This window gives you 2 days to close that gap by one honest sentence. After August 21, the opportunity doesn't vanish, it just stops being this easy to take. Here is the risk. Named plainly, your activated house this week is partnerships, contracts, and committed relationships, the 7th house, the one that governs the person sitting across from you in a binding agreement. romantic or otherwise. You might notice that you've been renegotiating the terms of that partnership silently, in your head, for weeks or even months, adjusting your expectations downward to avoid the conversation. The useful question this raises is whether a partnership that can't survive one honest request was ever stable to begin with, or whether you've been holding it together with silence, and that silence has started to cost more than the risk of speaking. The opportunity sitting inside that risk is real. In this reading, Venus here softens the delivery, even while Algorab insists on the truth underneath it. So the limit has to be clear, and clear this week. Pick one term of the partnership you've silently outgrown and name it once, plainly, before August 21. Not a hint. A sentence. I need us to split the weekend work evenly. I'm not available for calls after 9 anymore. I want to revisit how we're dividing the rent. If you don't draw that line now, the arrangement doesn't collapse. It just calcifies. You may find that the other person was waiting for you to say it, and the relief on both sides tells you the silence was costing them too. Think back to the last family dinner where you bit your tongue to keep the table peaceful. Not the last argument, the last time you chose not to have one. That moment, repeated weekly or monthly over years, has a shape, and your activated house this week is home, family, roots, and the people you share a history with, whether or not you share a roof. The classical reading of Venus meeting Algorab in a fourth house position points toward a domestic role you've been performing out of habit rather than agreement. The one who smooths things over, the one who apologizes first, the one who absorbs the tension so no one else has to feel it. That role wasn't assigned to you in a single conversation. It accumulated. You might notice this week that the quiet feels heavier than it used to, and that the effort it takes to maintain it has started to show up in your body. Jaw tension, shallow breathing, the feeling of holding something in your chest that has nowhere to go. The new movement is specific. Before this window closes on August 21, name one family expectation you've been meeting silently that you're no longer willing to meet. I'm not hosting this year. I need you to stop asking me to mediate between you and her. I'm done pretending that conversation didn't happen. Without that shift, the role doesn't release you. It tightens, it redistributes. You could find yourself 6 months from now carrying even more of the emotional labor than you are today, because the family has learned that you'll absorb whatever they can't hold, and the pattern has deepened into something nobody questions anymore. Think back to the last meeting where you had the better answer and said nothing, and watched someone else's smaller idea get the credit instead. That's not a one-time memory. It's a pattern, and your house this week is career, reputation, the public version of you that people quote in rooms you're not in. Astrologically, this can symbolize a repeated habit of trading visibility for likability, staying agreeable at work instead of staying accurate. You might catch yourself this week softening a professional opinion in an email, adding a "just wondering" or a "maybe I'm wrong," but to a sentence that didn't need the cushion. The cause underneath it is older than this job. At some point, you learned that being right out loud made you harder to work with, and you started preemptively apologizing for your own clarity to make other people comfortable. Read symbolically. Venus in your 10th house meeting Algorab points at a moment where the cost of staying pleasant has started to exceed the cost of being heard. That's what this window was for. Not to fix anyone else, but to stop you shrinking yourself into the shape of an easy answer. The discovery is simple. The yes that costs you nothing to give was never really a yes. What you discovered tonight is the mechanism underneath that reflex, the house where it's been costing you the most, and the single gesture that closes the gap between the version of you people see and the version that actually exists. The action is smaller than you think. One honest sentence sent before August 21 to the person who's been getting the softened version of you. Not a paragraph, not an explanation, just the sentence you've been rehearsing in your head and then deleting before it reaches your mouth. So tell me, in the comments, what's the one sentence you've been softening all week?